You're either approaching or maybe you're in that 90-day period where you need to file the I-751 petition to remove conditions on permanent residence. That's a mouthful. So this means that you're nearing the expiration of your 2-year green card. So how do you prepare this I-751 filing? What all goes into the packet? I'll share my tips in this video, including the logistics of putting together the filing while avoiding common mistakes, as well as a discussion of what evidence actually should go into this I-751 filing packet. If there's time, I'll also cover some common issues that we've seen and how to address those. I'm Soyuna Tak. I'm an attorney and one of the founders of Adam Law Group. We release videos about the law, including immigration. And if this is of interest to you and you want to learn more about the law and how it can serve you, then please subscribe. Before delving in, I highly recommend that you check out our other I-751 videos, especially the one that provides a lot more foundational background information, which will be really helpful to know before delving into the mechanics of the filing packet that I address in this video. Let's talk about preparing the filing packet. So the parts that make it up, and some common mistakes to avoid when you're putting it all together so that your filing is not rejected. We highly recommend that you have a cover letter. So the cover letter should list out everything that's in this filing packet. So the big sections would be payments, forms, and supporting evidence. And under each, you should list out the specific things. And not only does it show the officer that at a first glance, it looks like things that should be in here are all in here, but it'll also help you organize this filing too. Here, you would also put the address that you're sending this filing to at the top, and this is a great time to double check that filing address. Things can change, and if you send it to the wrong address, it will be rejected. So make sure you always check that. So after the cover letter, in fact, we usually, if it's checks, we staple it to the cover letter, are the payments. Here, just like the filing address, you always want to double check the filing fee amounts. And the base filing fee for the I-751, that's one check, and then another one would be the biometrics or fingerprint fee. And treat them as two separate things. It makes it easier. So currently, the I-751 fee is $595, and the biometrics fee is $85. And for checks, I'll also mention that you have to write out, it should be made out to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And other than U.S., you should not abbreviate any other words, but write them all out. The next part of the packet are, of course, forms. Forms are available for free on uscis.gov, and this is where you should get them from. So always double check the form edition right before you send off your filing packet, because when there are updates or new additions, they don't always come out on a predictable schedule. So you might have started this a while back when you first looked at it or thought of it, but by the time you're actually filing, form editions might have updated and there might be a newer edition. So make sure to check it right before you send it off. We'll have the link for you in the descriptions to the specific form I-751. And this is the place where you can also double check the edition date, the filing address, and the filing fees. As to the forms themselves, we highly recommend that you include the G1145 e-notification. This isn't required, but if you don't do this, then immigration will only paper mail you certain notices. And so this is a really good thing to do so that you can get, notification before you even receive your paper notification. The primary form here is, of course, the form I-751, Petition to Remove Conditions on Residence. For this one, make sure that both of you sign this form. So that would be a signature by the conditional resident and a signature by the spouse. Now, this video is not about waivers to the I-751. So if you are in a situation where you are filing the I-751 by yourself, please feel free to check out the videos about waivers to the I-751. Now, the last portion of this filing packet are it's all the supporting evidence. And of course, that is the bulk of the filing packet if you're looking at the thickness or whatever. So here, I'll just say that remember to include certified translations of any document or anything that's in a foreign language. So the bulk of the packet, the supporting evidence. Let's talk about what you need to put into this packet to hopefully have as smooth of a process as possible. First off, you need to include a copy of your green card, both the front and the back. We also tend to include like current passports, and it can be especially helpful where someone took a married name and then, for example, and then updated their passport. So, but really the most of this is all about your relationship. And this is really similar to what you've probably already done for the initial green card process. So first off, you need to have evidence that shows that you are living together. So a joint residence, and that can be demonstrated with a joint lease, joint mortgage or real estate tax statements, or a joint deed of some sort. And here, I would also recommend that if you guys have driver's licenses or state IDs, that they both show the current address and that those addresses should be, of course, the same. Another way to show joint residence is through utility bills in some ways. And immigration, the instructions state that if you have utility bills that are jointly made out to you, you can include those. But you can also include ones, and we've done this many times, where if the gas bill is in one person's name and then the electricity bill is in another person's name and they're for the same address, you can also include, bills like that too. You should also include evidence that shows financial commingling, and that's really important. So right off the bat, you want to include tax returns, both federal and state, and they should be, if at all possible, done as married filing jointly. And if by chance they're not, then you need to have a really good explanation, as to the reason. And we've had clients in the past where in consultation with their accountant, it was better to do married filing separately. But again, if at all possible, do married filing jointly, and you should submit all of your taxes for the past 2 years. You should also have joint bank account statements showing transactions, hopefully transactions that kind of can illustrate your household, income and budget and what you spend your money on. So at least if possible, I would say joint checking and savings accounts would be great. Also, you should submit documentation of any joint assets or liabilities. So that can be about investments that you may have, or, you bought a home or a car together, or you owe money on, a certain loan together, things like that. And then you also want to include insurance evidence. So things like health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, rental or home insurance. And again, if it's shared or your spouse is the primary beneficiary, those would all be very helpful. And then you can include other bills like a family cell phone plan, but you want to really document thoroughly that your finances are commingled. Next, you want to include at least 2 affidavits. So affidavits are sworn statements, and these would be by people who know you guys as a married couple and can attest to this fact. And the affidavit, of course, should have the required identification information of the affiant. The affiant means the person who is actually writing or giving you the sworn statement or the affidavit. And then besides that, they should also talk about how they know you guys. And then we recommend that affidavits be notarized. Technically, it's not required, but it's highly, highly recommended. The instructions to the form I-751, which you should, of course, read thoroughly, state that if you have any children born to you during the marriage, then you should include the birth certificates. And you should, if that applies to you, certainly do so. But I would also add the same goes for if you adopted children together, or for that matter, anything that can show the process of having children. So if you haven't adopted yet, but you're engaged in that adoption process, or you are pregnant, or in the middle of, or doing some kind of surrogacy, or getting fertility treatments. So I think those can all be evidence that'll help your I-751. Now, besides this, you really should include any other evidence that shows a life together. And that could be things like, common ones at least, are things like trips, such as airline itineraries, hotel receipts, things like that. Annotated photos are great. I wouldn't just dump just random photos, but photographs that show, oh, you're out and about in public at someone's wedding or graduation or work party, things like that, or, holiday dinners with family, whatever it might be. And then also, sometimes we also include, if the case needs it, communication records between you guys. So it can be things like phone records that show a lot of text going back and forth, or sometimes even specific messages where it's appropriate. Let's talk about some issues and how to address them. First off, a procedural issue. If you're a couple filing this I-751 jointly and you have any dependents, so kids who are also conditional residents, you can file everybody on this one filing with one filing fee if the kids gain their conditional resident status on the same day or within 90 days as the conditional resident parent. If not, then you need to file separate I-751 forms for each person. Now, when you have dependent conditional residents, so conditional resident kids, you want to make sure to include the $85 or whatever the current filing fee will be, the biometrics fee for each child. So currently that's $85. The next issue I want to talk about is if you have anything that's criminal. So if your criminal issue is a traffic incident that did not involve an arrest, and the only penalty was a fine less than $500 and or points on the driver's license, you do not need documentation unless it was drug or alcohol related. So that's good. But really, anything beyond that, you really should speak with a good immigration attorney. So I would not just wing it. You want to be really clear, and because things that might be, might appear less serious in the criminal justice system can actually have really inordinately huge immigration impact. And sometimes things that seem really a bigger deal in the criminal justice system might have actually less impact. So you really should speak with an immigration attorney. Another issue is where the couple did not live together for a bunch of the past 2 years. So we've seen this in many different variations and have seen different reasons. It could be because of work. For example, we've seen academics where maybe when you're looking for a good post or position, people are willing to endure a lot and travel to, really different places to seek out that opportunity. Or we've seen established academics where you might be offered a visiting professorship that's really important. And so the couple might live apart during that time. Or we've also seen this with consultants, for example, where from every Monday through Thursday night, you might be in a different city because that's where your consulting project is. And you might be staying at a apartment or corporate housing provided by your company. Another reason may be for medical treatment. Typically, it has to do with getting the best care for the best cost. And we've seen this for a number of different medical issues, including even fertility treatments. So here, whatever the reason may be, you need extra strong documentation of the relationship to overcome this issue. So definitely include more evidence like communication records, especially during those times when you're apart, and anything else that would really bolster, the good faith relationship and that you have and that you intend to continue to have a life together, and that you do have a life together, in fact. As appropriate, we also tend to include a statement or statements from the spouse as well as a conditional resident sometimes. But here I would be careful because you want to make sure that you're not doing any more harm than good. And again, I do recommend that you seek out the advice of an attorney. By the way, if you guys own multiple residences or have multiple residences, well, congratulations, that sounds great. But you also want to be careful in that situation that it's clear that you both use them together, not like one person lives in one residence and the other lives in the other residence and you actually never live together. You definitely want to avoid any appearance of that. I hope this gives you, especially if you're doing this by yourselves, a better idea of what goes into the I-751 petition packet. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe.